It was a difficult decision that I had to make yesterday. It's not the decision that... And there was a £22 billion black hole between what the previous government and what happened when that previous government made a commitments it could not afford. And rents through the roof.
Rachel Reeves thought she had it all figured out. A £22 billion fiscal discovery that would cement her reputation as Labour's economic mastermind. But what happens when her grand plans crumble under the scrutiny of one of Britain's toughest interviewers? Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. In a jaw-dropping encounter, Andrew Neil exposes the cracks in Reeves's economic promises, leaving her visibly shaken. Watch as we break down the moment that could change the course of British politics and reveal the truth behind Labour's fiscal strategy. Rachel Reeves dropped a bombshell that sent shockwaves through Westminster. The Shadow Chancellor claimed she had unearthed a staggering $22 billion fiscal black hole in the government's accounts. It was a revelation that threatened to upend the political landscape and cement Labour's reputation as the party of fiscal responsibility.
So you admit that this increase could hit workers' pay?
But I absolutely accept. Otherwise would have been. I think it was a difficult decision, the hardest. I wanted yesterday to get everything out into the open and be transparent about the decision. With a budget like this in the future.
But as the dust settled, questions began to emerge. How had Reeves stumbled upon this financial chasm when it had eluded the watchful eyes of the Office for Budget Responsibility and other economic institutions? The timing couldn't have been more perfect for Labour, with a general election looming on the horizon. If true, this discovery would be a game-changer, undermining the Conservatives' carefully crafted image of economic competence. Yet, as economic experts pored over the figures, skepticism began to grow. Many pointed out that such a significant discrepancy would be highly unusual, given the rigorous checks and balances in place. The Institute for Fiscal Studies, known for its impartial analysis, raised eyebrows at Reeves's claim. They highlighted the complexity of economic forecasting and the dangers of oversimplifying fiscal projections for political gain. The political implications of Reeves's announcement were immediate and far-reaching. Labour supporters hailed it as proof of their party's economic acumen, while Conservative MPs dismissed it as a desperate ploy to grab headlines. The truth, as always, likely lay somewhere in between. As financial institutions and opposition parties began to voice their skepticism, the stage was set for a showdown.
Madam Deputy Speaker, our plan to make work pay will also protect working people. Deeply interested in our plans here. So they should rest easy, knowing that our plan will protect working people from unfair dismissal. In the workplace, it is right that we protect those who have worked all their lives. In our manifesto, Mine Workers Pension Scheme to members.
Enter Andrew Neil, the veteran broadcaster known for his forensic interviewing style and uncompromising pursuit of the truth. News of Neil's upcoming interview with Reeves sent ripples of anticipation through political circles. Would Reeves be able to defend her claims under Neil's relentless questioning? Or would her $22 billion bombshell turn out to be a dud? The scene was set for a confrontation that could make or break Labour's economic credibility. As viewers tuned in, one question hung in the air. Would Rachel Reeves emerge as Labour's economic saviour, or would Andrew Neil expose fatal flaws in her fiscal strategy? The answer promised to reshape the political landscape in ways few could have predicted. In the high-stakes world of political journalism, one name strikes fear into the hearts of even the most seasoned politicians. Andrew Neil's reputation precedes him. But how did he earn the title of Britain's toughest interrogator? The answer lies in a career built on exposing uncomfortable truths. Neil's approach to interviews is nothing short of meticulous. He doesn't just skim the surface, he dives deep into the background of his subjects, poring over their policies and past statements with a fine-tooth comb. This exhaustive preparation allows him to challenge politicians on their own turf, armed with facts they'd often prefer to forget. But it's not just about preparation. Neil's track record of exposing political inconsistencies is legendary. He's made a career out of confronting politicians with the stark contrast between their promises and their actions. This relentless pursuit of accountability has led to seismic shifts in political narratives, reshaping public perception and sometimes even policy itself. Take, for example, Neil's recent criticism of Rachel Reeves. In a scathing column, he accused her of lacking fresh or radical thinking in her economic proposals. He suggested that under Labour, the country would simply double down on failed policies. This critique resonated with many voters, highlighting Neil's ability to cut through political spin and get to the heart of the matter. Media experts often point to Neil's interviewing technique as a masterclass in direct confrontation. He doesn't dance around issues or allow politicians to hide behind rehearsed talking points. Instead, he zeroes in on the core of the matter, demanding clear answers and calling out evasion when he sees it. This approach has earned him respect across the political spectrum, even from those who felt the sting of his questioning. As news of Neil's upcoming interview with Reeves spread, political circles buzzed with anticipation. Would Reeves be able to defend her $22 billion claim against Neil's forensic scrutiny? Or would her economic strategy crumble under the weight of his questioning? Neil's initial reaction to Reeves's claim was one of skepticism. He saw it as a potential game-changer, but one that required rigorous examination. As he prepared for the interview, the stage was set for a high-stakes encounter that could make or break Labour's economic credibility. With cameras rolling and a nation watching, the question wasn't if sparks would fly, but how big the explosion would be. The stage was set for a political showdown that would leave viewers stunned. As Rachel Reeves settled into her seat across from Andrew Neil, the air crackled with tension. Neil, known for his relentless pursuit of truth, wasted no time in challenging Reeves's $22 billion bombshell. Ms. Reeves, you've made quite a claim about this fiscal black hole. Can you explain how you arrived at this figure when it seems to have eluded every other economic institution? Neil's opening salvo set the tone for what would become an increasingly uncomfortable interview for the Shadow Chancellor. Reeves, initially confident, began to falter as Neil pressed her on the specifics. She struggled to reconcile her statement with existing economic data, her responses becoming increasingly vague and evasive. Neil, sensing blood in the water, pushed harder. You claim to be protecting working families, yet your policies suggest otherwise. How do you explain the proposed national insurance hikes that will undoubtedly burden these very families you claim to champion? Neil's question cut to the heart of Labour's economic strategy, exposing a glaring contradiction. As the interview progressed, Neil systematically dismantled Reeves's economic promises. He pointed out that after more than a decade in opposition, Labour seemed to be proposing more of what we've had too much of already, rather than offering innovative solutions to the country's financial challenges. The tension in the studio reached a fever pitch as Neil confronted Reeves about Labour's silence on rising inflation and its impact on working families. Reeves, visibly uncomfortable, struggled to provide a coherent response. But the knockout blow came when Neil brought up the winter fuel allowance cuts. You speak of helping working-class families, yet your party supports cuts to the winter fuel allowance. How do you square this circle, Ms. Reeves? Pensioners are feeling betrayed during one of the most challenging winters in recent memory. Reeves, caught off guard, fumbled for an answer. Her composure crumbled as Neil exposed the stark contradiction between Labour's rhetoric and their actions. As the interview drew to a close, it was clear that Reeves had been thoroughly outmaneuvered. The aftermath of this confrontation promised to send shockwaves through British politics. As viewers processed what they had witnessed, one question loomed large: how would Labour recover from this devastating blow to their economic credibility? As the dust settled from Reeves's disastrous interview, Labour found itself in uncharted waters. What began as a routine grilling had morphed into a political tsunami, threatening to wash away years of carefully crafted economic policies. But just how deep would these waters run? The public reaction was swift and merciless. Social media exploded with clips of Reeves stumbling over her words, unable to reconcile Labour's promises with their actions. Political commentators didn't pull any punches either. Andrew Neil's blunt assessment that Labour needed to grow up echoed across news channels, encapsulating the growing frustration with the party's economic strategy. Labour's spin doctors went into overdrive, attempting to reframe the interview as a minor setback. But their efforts fell flat against the tide of criticism from various quarters. Economic experts questioned the feasibility of Labour's plans, while opposition parties seized the opportunity to paint the party as economically incompetent. The impact on Labour's approval ratings was immediate and severe. Polling data showed a sharp decline in public trust, with voters increasingly skeptical of the party's ability to navigate the complex economic challenges facing the country. The promise of easing the cost of living crisis now rang hollow as people grappled with rising inflation and heavier tax burdens. Political analysts painted a grim picture of the long-term consequences for Labour. The party that once positioned itself as the voice of working families now faced accusations of betrayal. The decision to cut winter fuel payments, in particular, left pensioners feeling abandoned during one of the harshest winters in recent memory. As the crisis deepened, whispers of potential policy shifts and personnel changes began to circulate within Labour ranks. The party found itself at a crossroads, forced to confront the disconnect between its rhetoric and its actions. Would they double down on their current strategy, or was a complete overhaul of their economic approach on the horizon? The extent of the damage to Labour's economic reputation became painfully clear as days passed. Sam Richards, CEO of the pro-growth campaign group Britain Remade, voiced concerns that Labour's proposed cuts to capital spending could jeopardise vital infrastructure projects. This critique struck at the heart of Labour's promise to deliver growth and prosperity. As the fallout continued to unfold, one thing became certain: the landscape of British politics had shifted dramatically. The question now was not just how Labour would recover, but whether this moment would reshape the entire economic debate in the UK for years to come. The Neil-Reeves confrontation has laid bare the fragility of Labour's economic promises. What started as a bold claim of fiscal discovery quickly unravelled under scrutiny, exposing deep contradictions in the party's policies. This debacle serves as a stark reminder of the vital role tough journalism plays in our democracy. Without fearless interrogators like Andrew Neil, political spin might go unchallenged, leaving voters in the dark. As Labour grapples with its credibility crisis, the path forward remains uncertain. Will they double down on their current strategy or radically overhaul their economic approach? One economist warns that unless Labour provides a real alternative to Conservative policies, inequality and poverty will inevitably soar in the months and years ahead. This raises crucial questions about the future of British politics. Can Labour regain public trust? And more importantly, who will step up to offer genuine solutions to the UK's pressing economic challenges?